Hello, everyone. My name is Andreas Diaz. Me and Will are back again for another spectacular Marvel Plus talk. Today, we're just gonna discuss, of course, the first Iron Man film. Of course, the start of the MCU. Will, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing very good. So, very excited to talk about Iron Man. Finally, the first film of the MCU, Phase One. Yeah, very exciting. But yeah,
Yeah,
man,
no, this is one of my favorite Marvel movies. So definitely excited to talk about it.
yeah. Which is crazy. W- like this is thir- 13 years, right? Like since 2008. Like
14, yeah,
yeah, 14 years. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, because what was it 2018 was like its 10th anniversary, and then now it's 14 years. It's crazy. Ugh.
hmm
Yeah, time flies, and
yeah,
I guess the obvious question that you knew Iron Man before the movie? Like did you knew Tony before or was it like
Mm,
you got more into it in the
yeah.
movie?
No, I wasn't really familiar with him before the movie.
Mhm. Yeah, same here. I mean I guess not to color it, but I mean Iron Man is my favorite Marvel character and he's like the one that got me into Marvel the
hmm
most. Just because he reminded me of Batman mostly.
Yeah,
Uh, you
there are
know,
some similarities. Yeah,
yeah. Of course, the billionaire playboy. I mean, persona is kind of like there, but I mean, after that, it kind of like dissolves a little bit because the difference is like Bruce is a little more like. I mean, both are obsessive, but like they're different in terms of being obsessed with something. Like Bruce is
right. Yeah,
obsessed fighting the criminals in Gotham, and then Tony is like obsessed with improving life, which is intriguing.
hmm
So, and I think still today I still stand that I prefer the first Iron Man film as the best origin film over Batman Begins. I would say that this is my favorite origin story of any superhero film. So
yeah,
I,
yeah.
what
I
do you
agree with
think?
that. I agree with that. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, this might be just like the best superhero movie for
mm,
me. Like I know that I don't put it first when we're like ranking our favorites, but I think those include my like subjective like feelings about things, and I'm like
yeah,
willing to like overlook certain flaws because I like really enjoy aspects of other films. But this one, like just as a movie and as like a story, feels very like complete, and there's like nothing in it that is like questionable to me. Everything feels like intentional, ironically, since a lot of it was improvised. But
yes,
it just feels like they really had a plan for this movie, and everything like worked the way they wanted it to.
yeah, and then there was some that like they did not expect to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the big one was the whole like Iron Man, like Robert Downey Jr.'s performance.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
you know,
yeah,
I mean, like it's crazy to hear that it wasn't Marvel's first choice. It, it, I
yeah, but I mean,
just
like, given Robert Downey Jr.'s like status at the time,
yes,
it makes perfect sense that he wasn't their first choice. But
yeah,
um,
yeah. But I mean, yeah, it's crazy to just look upon Robert's career. Like of course I wasn't aware of his problems that occurred
mhm.
during the 90s and mid 2000s. But it just really did a good job of reflecting Iron Man as a character as well. Um, I think it. I think this is such a personal journey for Robert. Like it's almost it fit well where Iron Man is like this troubled man that is trying to redeem himself, and it's like
Yeah,
it's just so perfect with the first film's arc during this movie, which is incredible.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, and then there's also, I mean, we'll discuss a little bit later, but also the idea of a shared universe, which is something they were thinking,
Hmm.
but I think it was most important to like find the tone and balance of what the MCU should be, and I think this film helped establish that because one of the things I really appreciate about this film was like how comic book accurate the suits were, and like how they weren't like they made clever changes that was actually clever. Like
Hmm.
I before I read Iron Man comics and knowing the character more, like I didn't know Jarvis was a human first, but then in the movie, of course, they changed it into a AI, which I thought it was a good idea to change it that way.
Yeah, I think it worked really well.
Yeah.
And I'm still glad they like ended up bringing the human Jarvis in later. But
Mhm.
um,
Yep, I agree.
yeah, but I think the AI was a nice touch.
Yeah. And even that that one totally unexpected when we get to Age of Ultron.
Yeah, no, yeah, everything just seemed to work really well together. Like that they kind of changed for this movie.
Yeah, I will say it's I kind of like how they use the non-linear structure. You know, that's something we saw first in Batman Begins, where
Hmm.
we kind of go back and forth between Bruce Wayne's training and then the murder of the Waynes and then the trial and then like him running travel the world to understand the criminal element, right? And I really like how we open up the film into was it Afghanistan, right?
Hmm.
And I really love the shot of him holding the alcohol, which was cool because if you didn't know that, that's like the big thing about Iron Man is because he's like an alcoholism is his biggest problem in the comics, and it was like
Yeah.
I really dug that uh
Hmm.
that opening, and I just love how just right away that scene you like get Tony Stark as a person until the missile hits him, hitting the shrapnel into his heart,
Hmm.
which I love. I always love his interaction with the soldiers, like.
Yeah.
I love. Of course, it was in the trailers, but like he's like when the soldier raised the peace sign, and he's like, "No peace signs," and he say like, "Oh no, it's okay, just fill them up."
Hmm.
Yeah, the humor is so great in this film, and I think that first scene alone helps you understand the tone, the where we're gonna take Tony in his journey, which was good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, but yeah, I guess, and then one thing I really did not like, I want to mention like the comic book, uh, poll. Like, I never like, until I think it was Iron Man 3, I took notice about like the 10 rings. I didn't understood that was a reference to the Mandarin,
Hmm.
and it was so cool after I discovered that. Oh, okay, I see what they're referencing. That like I like how they modernized the Mandarin into this terrorist group, which I like.
Yeah.
Um, and I
And then I appreciate the retcon of Shang-Chi making the Ten Rings like the Mandarin's criminal organization.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, I. That's one of the things I love about Shang-Chi is about that because I dug the Mandarin as a villain, but anyway, I mean in culture appropriate way, not in the comics.
Right. Yeah. Not.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just as an Iron Man villain, but not like just not this warmonger stereotypical, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which it's interesting they went with the direction it did for this film. I don't know if you know the background of this film. Like the Mandarin was supposed to be the main villain for this film, um, and it was almost like halfway before production started, they kind of changed it into Obadiah Stane, and then it
Hmm.
seemed like he wasn't supposed to become the Ironmonger in this film. It was supposed to be a sequel setup, but
Hmm.
um, which when we get to Stane, I kind of wish they did do that because I just felt like I mean, there's criticism here and there in this film for me, but I will agree with everyone. The third act is the weakest of this film, because of the Ironmonger thing. But we'll get into that. But I mean, it's a better ending over the other MCU third acts because um, there's something about this works than some of the other ones, in my
Hmm.
opinion.
Yeah.
When I get into my thoughts on the third act. But let's get into the casting. I really enjoy every cast member.
Hmm.
Let's kind of get rid of this very quickly. I know the big topic is always Terrence Howard as Howard
Hmm.
Stark, and
Or well,
well,
as James Rhodey,
yeah,
Rhodes.
well, James
Yeah,
Rhodes.
uh, not as
What?
Howard Stark.
Oh, I'm sorry. I knew yeah. I'm sorry. I meant James Rhodes. Yeah.
Hmm.
Terrence Howard's version of James Rhodes. I I thought he was okay. I didn't mind him. He never felt like I don't know. Like he felt very mean to Tony. Like when Tony was coming to him, it's like, oh, I'm working on a project, and he was trying to let his friend to help. Like he wanted him to help him with the Iron Man project, and then he
Hmm.
just like turns him off, and I was like, whoa, dude, what are you doing? Your friend is like came to you to talk to you, you know?
Yeah, they're
I
very adversarial, which is a little strange in this movie.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
um,
like
but I don't know. I liked him. I th-
oh, okay,
I know I prefer Don Cheadle in the role,
hmm,
but um,
yeah,
I think Terrence Howard's fine.
yeah, yeah. Weirdly, it's funny. There's always recurring themes about the MCU. Like recasting is like the major thing about the MCU. Like early on, they had recasting, which is funny to see.
Yeah.
Um, it's like let's be honest, like it's a recurring thing in movies. Like every time we get a new Bond film, it's like we get a new actor, or in this weird thing I seen, like I noticed from James Bond and then the Batman films, the '90s ones, they carry over the actors into their films, and so it's weird when it's like, wait, is this in the same continuity? And it's just
Hmm.
it gets kind of like, okay, I will accept that. Um, but I think Marvel does a good job of like paying that off, like okay, this is a new character, this is fine. So like they do a good job of when like, recasting has happened. So
Hmm.
which is good because sometimes it like, oh, this is new actor uh playing this character. But I will say you brought up like I think one of the problems with Terrence Howard is like you mentioned his like adversary to Tony. Like I
Hmm.
mean, it could have been an interesting direction, but you presented this as a friendship,
Right.
and why did you did the adversary way? Like I think it made more sense in Iron Man 2, but of course in Iron Man 2 it felt very juvenile and just like it's like it just didn't felt too serious. Uh, conversation. Um, but yeah, I felt like it was just yeah, really really odd, and I don't know, like he didn't feel gelled to the cast as well. Like
Hmm.
I don't know,
Yeah, I
like
mean Terrence Howard's just a weird dude. So
oh dear,
um,
oh dear,
so and whereas Don Cheadle's very like down to earth and normal, and
yes,
so I think yeah, just like from like a cast member to cast member standpoint, it definitely makes sense they replaced him with Don Cheadle.
yeah. He's like the weakest cast member out of the bunch for this first film for me.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like I mean he doesn't get much to do, and I don't know, like he never felt military man like John Teo was.
Hmm.
So I think he's the weakest part of this film. So yeah. And I mean, and just to wrap things up with James Rhodes, I think it was good that they did recast him because I think paying Robert that amount of money, and the sequel made more sense because he's the
The
main
lead.
star. Yeah, the
Yeah.
lead, and and I I mean, there could have been other ways to keep him around, but I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, the sequel was rushed, so I don't think there was a lot of options for them to keep him.
Hmm.
Yeah. But one thing I wanted to get into now, kind of get that over with. Like one of the reasons I really like Iron Man, why it's in my top superhero list, and Marvel is, you kind of mentioned like bias. I one of these I really appreciate about this was the character relationship in this movie.
Hmm.
Like despite I don't like the way, like, it's kind of like the Wanda Doctor Strange 2 problem of like the turn of villain,
Hmm.
but just like Elizabeth Olsen, I feel like the performance is the thing that keeps it like together. Like,
Hmm.
I think Jeff Bridges is probably the most underrated villain performance in the MCU, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's so good here.
Yeah, I just like he's such tough form. Like he is there as Robert, and I think him being like obviously he's different from the comics, but I like the idea of him knowing Howard before he like you know ran the company, before Tony was like older enough to run in. Like that
Hmm.
was a good way to do it, and we'll get into the like the twists and him being a villain. It doesn't make sense, but I mean I can go like it's believable enough. But that's my one nitpick. But I think Jeff Bridges was really great. I always love his the I mean the meme like I Tony Stark built this in a
In a
cave,
cave with a
a
box of
box of
scraps.
scraps.
Yeah.
I mean he delivers that so well, and I think it's just so iconic still today. Like even what is it, Far From Home? Repeat that scene, and then like they do a
Hmm.
zoom into the guy.
Yeah, because it's the same actor.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know he's from the Christmas Story?
Yeah, he played Ralphie.
Yeah, I
He's
okay.
friends with Jon Favreau. He was an elf too.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Where? Wait.
he's one of the elves in Santa's workshop.
Oh, was he the one that like? Okay, I think I know which elf. Was he the
Mm.
one that was encouraging Wildflower's character? Like, oh, you're special. You're just different, right? Is that?
Yeah, I think that's.
Oh my
I
god.
think that's the one.
Oh my god, that's funny. Yeah, I knew he was good friends with Jon Favreau, but I didn't know he was an elf. Like, I was
Hmm.
like, oh really? Okay. So, but yeah, I think Jeff Bridges was really good. I really loved him in this film, and it was always sad that he got killed in this film. I think
Hmm.
there was just potential for him to like continue on into the series, but I don't know where you could put him. But I will say I I think I couldn't buy the Ironmonger change, but I feel like there wasn't enough development into his villainous turn. I feel like
Okay.
because because like you, I think one of the problems about the third act and his like this twist they did with this character is like you're you're like pushing out so much info for me to process. I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing here. It's just like like how they didn't know he's doing this, and like how did Tony didn't notice that. Like I just feel like there was just a lot to like adjust in all that like 40-minute or 50-minute mark into this like third act, and I feel like I feel like they should have saved the Iron Marker to like the next film. But then it's like, well, what are you gonna do with the last scene, like the action finale? I guess, but
Hmm.
I don't know. But what do you think, Will, about like the villain turn in this film? Like, did it bother you when
No,
you saw
I
it?
think the like from a character standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. Like they do telegraph it pretty early on.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
like you see that he's like jealous of Tony's leadership in the company,
Yeah.
If you can speak Arabic, they straight up spoil it in the opening scene.
Oh,
Um,
really? Oh,
well,
okay.
because there's like the hostage video where
Yeah, yeah,
that gets translated later, and that's like the big reveal that he's the villain. But that's played like verbatim at the beginning of the movie. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, fans that could speak Arabic like knew the twist the entire time.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, for you and me, it's a fun little reveal. But
yeah.
um, yeah, so like I think all of that makes sense. The thing that doesn't quite make sense is like the suit kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yes.
But
Like,
but like it it's not necessarily nowhere because he was working with the Ten Rings.
yeah,
He got the wreckage of the Mark One. Like it does make sense. It just feels like it comes together very quickly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's just like like how, like I guess, like for me, it was like the thing about these trilogy, like this Iron Man trilogy, is always funny when they say they cannot replicate the Iron Man suit. It's it's always contrived. It's like you need the arc reactor to make it power up well, or you need someone like a level of like another scientist that is like level to Tony. Like in Iron Man 2, like
Mm-hmm.
Manko knew how to operate the drones, and like he built his own Iron Man suit like very quickly
Right,
with
and he had his own like arc reactor.
exactly. And it's that was always the thing that I always kind of noticed. Well, really the first two, because in Iron Man 3 we went a different direction with the
Mm-hmm.
villains, especially with the extremists, and then of course the fake Mandarin. Like there was just a much more like, okay, it's more about the, was it like the mind, or like the lucidity of smart people building these very technological advanced ideas.
Mm-hmm.
With Tony with the Iron Man suit, and then Killigan with the extremist enhanced formula that he built. You know,
Mm-hmm.
for super soldiers. I never mind the iron marker here. I just wish the design was a little more creative. Really,
Yeah, I get that because it really does just look like a bigger version of the Mark One,
yeah, and
um,
uh,
which like makes sense in universe, but like visually, it's kind of boring.
yeah. I just wish they did the blue color that was from the comics, or I don't know, like maybe borrow some color scheme from some other armor villain. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but yeah, I couldn't have this problem if Whiplash made his suit more like a Russian, like design. Like you see the red, like the
Mm-hmm.
Soviet flag, like how the Chris and Damian suit was in the comics.
Yeah.
But yeah, so unfortunately, these two films just didn't do anything creative with the suits of the Iron Man villains. So and then I I guess, like, I guess one thing that I will say is, like, do you think we had too many villains in this film? Like, I like how they handle the villains. It's just I don't like the way we kind of pay off with them. You know, like I kind of wish we just stick with the Ten Rings as the villains for this film, and then save Obadiah in the sequel. But I
Um,
just, what
no,
do you
I
think?
think for me personally, I like the way they did it here,
Okay.
especially since it like really centers the like American military industrial complex as like the
Yes.
overarching villain, like having Obadiah Stane be like behind the Ten Rings as well. Really,
Yeah. Yeah. That makes
yeah,
sense.
it really works well with the theme of like American weapons falling into
To the wrong hands.
like the wrong hands, but then like it's like the Americans are building stronger weapons to fight the terrorists, who then get those stronger weapons. So then the Americans need to build even stronger weapons, and it's just like a vicious cycle.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
I think it's really important to like Tony's arc for him to like physically be confronted with that and to like try to break that cycle.
Yeah, yeah, and then realize that the way his father or like over there's way was just not the right way to go.
Right.
So like trying to pave his own legacy as well.
Mm-hmm.
So which is something we discuss more into Iron Man 2 into the sequel and their themes. But yeah, okay. I will say, kind of get into the third act. Like, I think one thing that I kind of wish the movies do more was paying off like setups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the reason I like the third act more than some people, and the reason that it doesn't work with the other films of the MCU is what is it, the ice um
Mm-hmm.
cliche up in the
Yeah.
sky,
Yeah.
like such a great payoff from the early scene where Tony was going up and then his whole suit was freezing up because of the atmosphere going higher. It's like such a great payoff. And then
Mm-hmm.
like the arc reactor, his first one, and then it got became obsolete. And then I really like the payoff of like him using it again because it was there, but like that was his first original heart. You know,
Right.
the, it's just such a good payoffs, and that's something we don't see enough in films. Like just paying off a setup that you set up, and then it feels satisfying. Like that was one of the things I took notice from the first film. It's like they pay off so many things. Like I and we watched. I didn't catch this, but I love the payoff where Tony talked about he was bringing up the night where they kiss
Mm-hmm.
in the fire fundraiser, and then
Mm-hmm.
I love that Pepper like took that as like, oh, the that night where we kissed, and then you were supposed to give me a drink and then you left me there. Like I never caught that, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, that's so cool. Like great payoff for that like early scene, and it's just
Yeah.
and just it was just funny how like Tony just like stand there is like, yep, okay, move on.
Mm-hmm.
I never noticed that until like recently, so
Yeah.
it's like cool.
Yeah.
So that
The storytelling in this movie is just a lot tighter than in
yeah,
later Marvel movies. Um, and I
yeah,
think part of that's just because like the movie's meant to be standalone. Like
yeah,
I feel like Marvel in later movies, they know that they can follow up on something later, so they get kind of lazy about like calling it back, like by the end of the
yeah,
movie. So they set things up and then like leave them for a decade. Um,
yeah. I yeah. The worst for me for that one is definitely, well, this is before we got Shang-Chi. It was definitely the Ten Rings.
mm-hmm.
Like I I I like Iron Man 3 more, and it's still my number 10 favorite MCU film. But it was this like it was a very sci-fi thing, not knowing the person that took Tony kidnapped, and
Right.
then we just had a fake Mandarin. Like it was so dissatisfying, and then I like how Shang-Chi fixed that. And
Yeah.
but
Yeah, it was exciting when the trailer came out for that movie because you were like, oh, they're gonna like loop it back into the beginning of the franchise, like the
yeah,
first movie in the trilogy, and it's gonna make like a neat little bow
yep.
on Iron Man's story, and then nope.
Nope. No, and it was just so like it was just so funny because they made such a big deal. Like in Iron Man 2, the guy that gave Ivan's passport was like a Ten Rings member. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like why is that so important? Like it was just so this oh my god, I cannot speak today. Dissatisfying thing, but it was the worst one for me is the Doctor Strange one with Mordo. what I say quest of killing sorcerers, but then in the sequel, Doctor Strange 2, say he is just fighting Doctor Strange, like he's after Doctor Strange, and we didn't see all that in the last 6 years, and it's like, okay, you dropped the ball for this one.
Hmm.
For me, it's not like they pick up these things. It's like they leave it, but they don't pay it off. Like certain ones are not paid off because they didn't think through with the thing, you know.
Hmm.
Where others, where they do pay off, is because people are complaining that it was dissatisfying. That's why we got the whole mention like retcon thing, you know.
Right.
So it's very frustrating. So yeah, I agreed. I just feel like because this is before it's before we got like Thor and like Guardians, like in terms of like how you approach a origin story. Like you know, I always dug seeing how the hero becomes the hero. Like I love the intricate detail of the Iron Man suit build up, like from Mark
Hmm.
One to Mark Two, and then to the final Mark Three. Like it was so cool,
Yeah.
and like that's one of the things I really enjoy about this film is just seeing Tony building up to a new version of the Iron Suit, and like you can do that with every hero, like how to build up their journey into a hero. It just feel like
Hmm.
they sometimes want the character established in the universe, but it's like, can we just take our time seeing the hero become the hero before we inter- integrate them into the universe? That's my
Hmm.
problem recently in the MCU. It's like, you know,
Yeah, they're
like
just throwing everyone in.
yeah, and it's like, no, no, just keep it away from the shared universe. Just first establish their universe, and then afterwards you integrate them into the shared universe.
Yeah, you want it to feel like a crossover instead of like just another chapter
Yeah,
in a bigger story. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, like, there's certain characters you don't need to do origin stories, but it has to be a very particular character to do that. Like, um, it made sense with the Hulk, but I really think they needed to do another origin story for that character. But I mean, they just did what they did, and
Hmm.
it didn't work. It made sense with the first Thor film. I did appreciate they didn't do an origin story for that. If you were not going with um the Donald Blake personality, uh, like identity for Thor. So like that was fine. And then the Spider-Man Homecoming thing was also good too because we already had the Amazing Spider-Man film, so it didn't make sense to do a third time to do the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, I think
So
it makes sense to skip the origin stories for characters where like everyone's already familiar with like their origin and
yeah,
how they got their powers and everything.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it just feels like a waste of everyone's time. Like we don't need to see Uncle Ben die or the Waynes get murdered. Like everyone knows the story. Let's just get going with the new thing.
yeah. Or
Yeah.
Krypton being exploded
Oh
again.
yeah. Oh man.
I'm very surprised that hasn't brought up yet. But
Yeah. How many times have we seen Krypton destroyed?
well, really three times. That's like, because like Superman Returns, like really, the opening we see like Krypton explode. Like it's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing in the first Reeve film. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's supposedly in the same continuity.
Right.
Um,
And
but
then we've
yeah.
seen it on TV too,
Oh yeah,
like
Smallville,
Supergirl,
Supergirl.
Smallville.
Yeah. Um,
Um, there's an
Superman.
entire show about Krypton right before it blows up, right?
Yes.
Uh,
That one is it's very weird. Like it was trying to be Star Trek '09 mixed with Smallville.
yeah.
I mean, I was a huge Brainiac fan. I was happy to see Brainiac in the show, so that was like the only plus for that. um, Weirdly, they had like the best Superman villain costumes like adaptations. Like Doomsday looked great there, and Lobo was great. Like they actually include Lobo, and he looked great in live action.
Huh.
So yeah,
Lovo on Krypton.
yeah, he's in
Okay.
he was introduced in season 2
Okay.
in Krypton. Um, and it was supposed to be a spinoff. I heard initially.
Huh.
Yeah, before that whole site got canceled, unfortunately. Yeah, yeah. But I guess piggyback to the MCU and Iron Man. I will say I really dug Pepper Potts. I think that was another aspect I really like was
Mm-hmm.
the love interest because I mean, like at the time, I was fine with the Mary J, Spider-Man relationship until Spider-Man 3 took it far worse, like really bad, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like you guys anymore. And then of course, the Susan Storm and Mr. Fantastic relationship was just really awful from day one, and it was just a lot of stereotypical, things. Um, Despite there were some that I like the Blade films. I really appreciate how they handle, the female characters there. The first two, the third one was just, like I mean, it wasn't a Blade focus really, but I
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate this. Like, I like how they didn't rush it, like to get them together. Like that was the thing I appreciated the most.
Mm-hmm.
Like we took our time to get to know her and know where she was at with Tony as a co-worker slash boss relationship, and they had chemistry too. That was another
Oh,
thing
they
that
have
worked.
great chemistry. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the only way that was gonna work. Because otherwise, it's just a weird dynamic.
yeah,
Um, like the boss and assistant thing could get really dicey. So you
yeah,
have to like really believe in their relationship for it to not feel weird.
yeah,
And yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. It could have been weird or just very melodrama at the same time. Like it could have been like Lana slash Clark in Smallville level bad. Uh, but they tiptoed the perfect balance for this film. Uh, that got worse in Iron Man 2, but
Mm-hmm.
it got better in Avengers. Well, I mean, she was briefly appear in the Avengers, but then Iron Man 3 and onwards, I think she's been good. So
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the thing that got me to really like the relationship was the scene where Pepper had to help Tony to put the new arc reactor. Like that
Mm-hmm.
scene alone
Yeah.
helped me really appreciate them as a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Starting to be a couple. I always say. It's so iconic as well. That scene is also funny.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I always like the line where he say like Pepper, I'm many great things, but what was the word like?
Nostalgic is not one of them.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I really like that line. That like I don't know, it hit me very well. It's just like, oh, that's so good, and then I like the
Yeah.
pay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. What were you
No,
gonna
no,
say?
no. You're saying it. You're saying it.
Oh yeah, like obviously I love the payoff, the heart thing when she
Mm-hmm.
say like, oh Tony, it proves Tony has a heart, and I just love that payoff. It's just so great.
Yeah. And it's I don't know. Like it's really sweet that she like kept it and like made it into that. Like that's what shows that like she has the feelings that he has. Like that's what shows
Yes,
that it's reciprocal. Yeah.
yeah, no,
Um.
I agree. And just shows Tony as a character growing
Mm-hmm.
each time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was great to see again in Endgame, like as the what do you call it, like funeral. I don't know how you like the like setup of the funeral. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this
Yeah.
is this is how we're gonna send goodbye to Tony. Is like sending this arc reactor that like she's like made for him to prove his heart was like there, and I just
Mm-hmm.
oh my god, that was so great, great
Yeah.
payoff.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. But yeah, I guess who like the other character that I really like I did appreciate Iron Man 3 bringing his character back was Instant. I
Yeah.
was I was gonna say one of the best mentor hero relationship. I really love Winston. His death always got to me because I
Mm-hmm.
just when we discover his family die and I like how he's now joining them. It's like such a great way to send Tony to his path of hero.
Mm-hmm.
And oh god, such great, and his performance is amazing. I just love him as the character here. What do you think about Eason? I just love this character so much.
Yeah, no, he does a really good job. Um, and I don't know, I like that he's like kind of a bridge between Tony's old life and his like new life as Iron Man because he like had met him before at a party, but
Yes,
like Tony was too drunk to remember.
yeah.
Um,
Was he that drunk in Iron 3? Like
I
I
don't
wanted,
think so, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Like it was always funny to see that. I that was one of the neat things looking back at Iron 3. It's like, oh, they like brought that back
mm-hmm.
to what the first Iron Man addressed, and it's like, cool. And just seeing that is like, I mean, that scene shows how Iron Man, like Tony was back then, like very like egocentric kind of person, and
Mm-hmm.
just caring about him and not everyone else around him. It just really capped that very well. But yeah, I will say like this and what is it? Imskin from First Adventure. Those two were really great mentors in this MCU. Um,
Yeah,
First Adventure definitely has a very good parallel, like similarity to the first Iron Man film, but differently.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, yeah. Those
I
two characters are incredibly similar.
yeah, um, yes, very similar. And I like how they point out the heart, which is always cool. Like like of course Imp point out the heart, and then of course Yinston creates this new heart for Tony, and it's this very interesting parallels between those two. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I just great. I'm trying to figure out what's the funniest moment for Jensen. Like I don't know, just so many great things about Jensen. I'm trying to figure out who else we have to mention in terms of characters.
I mean, we got um, Happy and Coulson.
Oh yes, yes, Coulson. Let's get into Coulson because he's like the big one that continue on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Coulson is here. He's really great. I love Clark Gregg. I mean, it doesn't make sense now. Obviously, we know back then, we didn't know if it was gonna continue on, but like, the running gag of they didn't know Shield's full initials is
Yeah,
always funny for me.
yeah. I think it's really funny, and it is ruined with retcons later. But
I know. Oh,
I don't know. Maybe Coulson was just being cheeky.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I
but
I don't know. I feel like it was like an afterthought. Like I don't think they knew this was gonna get to be a
no,
lot of like
it
ongoing.
definitely was not intended to be anything other than like a running joke throughout the movie. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah. But yeah, it's really funny, and
yeah,
yeah, and I think Clark Gregg had really good chemistry with Robert, and then with Pepper as well. I really dug the Pepper and Coulson like friendship they built,
hmm yeah,
and and yeah, I always dug that. Yeah, and what else? I think was kind of cool. Yeah, and then you mentioned Happy. It's always funny to see directors being actors in these
hmm
films, and it's so weird how Favreau loses his weight for this film, and then like he's just this silent character until he became more prominent into these films. Like he's like Jarvis as well, like completely a character I wasn't expecting to continue on after this first film.
yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
crazy. So, oh my god, yeah. I mean, yeah, nothing like fun with Happy in this film, unlike the second film. Like,
Right.
there's more funny things with with Happy in that film than this film.
His role gets bigger in the second one.
Yeah, and then like he his role is reduced in Iron Man 3, but like he's like the antithesis of Tony investigating the Mandarin attacks as well. So
Right.
yeah, yeah. And it's weird. It's weird. Like Happy is the Uncle Ben of Spider-Man. Uh,
Yeah. Kinda.
weirdly,
Yeah.
you know, like after Tony dies, he becomes like the new Uncle Ben for Spider-Man.
Hmm.
Which is weird. I want to get into one thing that has not been dated. Like you brought up like the gag of Shield. It's kind of dated because of the retcons, but oh man, the effects are really great. And
Yeah. Oh man, when I was rewatching it, um, there was one thing that like really, just really impressed me, and it was the scene that we were talking about earlier with Pepper, like fixing his heart.
yes,
Like you
right.
can really like it. I keep forgetting that like there's no way that they're actually like reaching into Robert Downey Jr.'s chest to pull wires out and stuff because it just looks so like realistic
Yes.
and
No.
seamless. Yeah.
Yeah. And what else that was kind of cool that kind of became a trend was the holograms.
Hmm.
Like you see like Tony like redesigning the Mark One to the Mark Two
Hmm.
into this like almost like flat like table, and like that's something became a trend afterwards. Like Avatar did that, like the the
Hmm.
hologram futuristic thing. It's like very seamless and
Yeah.
something we haven't really got rid of. The Iron Suit, it's like the big one for me. Like
Hmm.
just the practical suits slash mixing the CGI is so well integrated in this film.
Hmm.
Where I really miss that we kind of forgotten that in the later films. Like, oh boy, like Infinity War was really bad with the Iron Man suit there. I never liked that Mark whatever suit in Infinity War.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
It just looked more and more like
CGI.
animated. Yeah.
Yeah,
As time went on, which like I get that like I know Robert Downey Jr. had said that like during the filming of the earlier Iron Man movies, the suit was like really cumbersome and just
yeah,
uncomfortable to wear. So like I can appreciate that they made it easier for him, but
yeah.
uh,
No,
yeah,
no,
it
I
was.
agree. It looked better in Endgame. Like there's certain films that it looks better with. It's just Infinity War looked the worst for me.
Hmm.
I just looked too skinny on him. That was the thing for me.
Yeah, like like you couldn't actually fit a person in it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think my favorite suit out of that was either Avengers and then the Civil War suit. Like those were my favorite way of like
Hmm.
integrating the CGI suits better.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, and I mean because like I I just feel like cause with many MCU films being produced, like this was the time where CGI got really improved, and like the suit looks so seamless in this film. Like you can never tell like it's CGI,
Hmm.
besides maybe the Ironmonger, but like even that looks really good in this film.
Yeah.
So yeah. Um, and then I guess one thing I want to say that I did appreciate more um this time around, like paying attention to this was the music, the score.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you if you really like this score because uh weirdly these three films, the Iron Man films, have like different scores, just like the Thor films for some reason.
Hmm.
you know. Um
Yeah.
yeah, I really dug the one section. What was it called? Like the man and machines part
Okay.
when I I actually like pull out what it's called, but like that section was really good. It's where like when he does the Mark II
Hmm.
testing. The music
Yeah.
there is like my favorite part of the score. So
Yeah. There's a song. There's like a track in the score called "Driving with the Top Down,"
That's the one I'm talking about.
That's
Yeah,
yeah, that's one of my favorite
yeah,
songs off any Marvel soundtrack.
yeah. Like,
Um,
this one was made by the composer that did the Eternals and did
hmm
Game of Thrones, of course.
And Westworld, I believe.
Oh yes, yep, yep, yep. No, no. I knew
Yeah,
he was in one of those other HBO shows. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and he's doing something else. He's directing something soon.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Um,
I gotta try to.
because I know his name is Michael Giacchino, who did the Doctor Strange and Spider-Man scores.
No,
Okay, so he's doing some. Okay, let me check. Cause
right? Or maybe,
I
no, maybe I was confusing the directing thing with Michael Giacchino.
okay,
Yeah, I
cause
think I was. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, no, no, no worries. I know, cause yeah, it's weird. Like now, the composers are going to be directors now.
Yeah. Oh, apparently, this guy did Uncharted,
Oh,
like
really?
the movie, not the game.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah,
that's bad.
yeah. No, the games have a fantastic soundtrack. The
Mm,
movie,
just
not as much. Yeah,
how was the score there? Was it? I mean, vanilla
it
or
was it was very vanilla. Yeah, I mean they did like reference the themes from the first few Uncharted games,
okay,
so that helped it. But
okay.
yeah,
Oh boy. Yeah. He's a good composer. I was like I guess it's a good time to start with the nitpicks. I mean, it's not good when these films starts doing the trends that's kind of plagued the whole series. And I mean, this I mean, I mean, this really starts the forgettable music in these films. Like or like it starts this trend where they cannot pick, like they cannot continue off with this one score. They
hmm
some reason is they needed to get a new score for these films for some reason. I don't know why. You know. And
hmm
then the worst part is the was it the beam sky thing.
oh yeah,
You know, like I
the
thought the event.
Skybeam.
Yeah, the sky beam. You know, I thought the Avengers started, but then looking back at the first Iron Man film, I was like, it kind of started there, then kind of built
Yeah,
upwards.
it's a little different here because it's not like
Yeah, yeah, it's different.
it's like a one off. It's not like a constant beam with like some kind of army around it.
Yeah, um,
But
yeah. I blame the Transformers films because they did that first, and then the Avengers took that, and then it's like it just
yeah,
kept.
it's been a trend for a while.
Yeah. Oh god.
Um,
Yeah, and I guess the other thing that I mean, it's not like a criticism, but I mean, the humor is something that's been very attractive with the MCU, and I will say I enjoyed this humor
hmm
compared to some of the Wheaton like wisecrack
Yeah,
jokes.
yeah,
I will say, because at least it doesn't make a joke like like I'm fine with the joke of like Iron Man is Tony's bodyguard, like that I like that is like very goofy, and you can make a joke about that. Like I don't need jokes about the costumes or or whatever.
yeah. It never goes like overboard with the humor. Everything feels very like
Yeah,
um, natural and like fitting with the world and the characters that the movie like is exhibiting.
yeah,
Whereas like later Marvel movies, yeah, it feels like they're writing jokes because like some audience test told them they need a laugh there. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Ugh, oh boy. Yeah, or like intercut the drama as well. Like that's
right,
other.
yeah,
Um, yeah, like yeah, like this is where I wish they continue with the humor, but then. eh, I mean, it's always tough because there's so many different people involved with these projects, and it's like it's
right,
kind of hard to continue with the consistent humor, you know.
yeah, yeah,
So
and this movie really benefits from like not having the weight of like a gigantic like multimedia franchise
No,
like bearing
no,
down on it. Like it was very much a gamble, and they let them do whatever they wanted for the most part, and it
yeah,
paid off really well.
yeah, it did. Like, I mean, this was. A lot of people don't know this, but like, this was like a very independent film. Like, yes, Paramount distributed this, but like, it was entirely with Marvel. They
Right.
put together the project and all that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they loan from a bank or someone to just get these projects off the ground, you know. So it's crazy to see that, and it's kind of funny, like looking back on it, you know, like Ant-Man was like in pre-production before we really got the real one.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was early on, and then like there was a San Diego Comic-Con uh before this film and the whole MCU thing became a thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
Feige did that. Like he announced like the projects that was
Yeah.
initially in Phase One. Like, did you seen those before? Um,
Yeah, I've seen like photos of him announcing like Iron Man and like just the Avengers
yeah,
lineup, and
yeah. It's so weird, and just like this character, this is the one that they started with, and I think
yeah,
I will say it was a good start because he's just a way easier character to accept, and
mm-hmm.
like he was just a more acceptable character to start with before we get into more of the fantastical comic book Marvel things that you know with Thor and Captain America.
Yeah, it was easier to start with the like one that's more grounded in reality.
Yeah, it fit with the Nolan
Yeah,
friend that we're
it's
gonna get into,
yeah,
so
um,
it's kind of funny. But you know
yeah.
the
I
being
mean,
here is
it's interesting that like they were making these movies with the characters that they had left, like
yes,
because they had sold the film rights off to their more successful characters,
yeah, yeah,
and they really did a good job in like turning the B, C, or D list characters into like
A
the
list.
most recognized characters in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this was like it's a rare thing now because like now like you can like they start like they're still B list, but like you cannot call them now like low tier characters. Like there's potential with them as like
Mm-hmm.
characters in franchise now because of what the Iron Man and MCU did for these
Right.
characters. You know?
Yeah. As long as you get like a good adaptation, any character could be a juggernaut.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And this like really helped Iron Man as a character. Like
Mm-hmm.
for best or worse, you could say. Um, I will say that I don't like that we forced the Robert Downey Jr. personality into the medium for Iron Man. Like,
Mm-hmm. It did permanently change the character. Yeah.
yeah, like I like I love the Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, but I never needed Tony to be like. Well, he wasn't that far with Robert, but like you could see he was like a very inspired like
Mm-hmm.
Tony, but like he was still the comic book Tony Stark in that show. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah. But yeah, but and then this film also kind of like legit made the superior Sandra be like legit with the Dark Knight. Like that's
Yeah.
something we
Those
need
two
to.
movies. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think because with this it's like it show you how like like how sophisticated but also fun but smart blockbuster could be. And then you
Right.
got the Dark Knight being this Oscar like contender that you weren't expecting for a superhero film.
Yeah. It showed that they could be like good movies instead of just like campy like popcorn movies.
Or
They're still popcorn movies, but they're
yeah,
like
yeah.
there's a quality there that was missing from other like earlier attempts.
Yeah. Yeah, and like they didn't have the formula that made these films successful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, bad or good, but like I think it's always best to know, like, this really show what to make a successful superhero film should be. Like, be
Hmm.
faithful to it. Like, stay true to the character, but like change the aspect to make it work into your story
Right.
narrative. And that's
Yeah.
something we always miss in these films sometimes. And I think that's where Iron Man made it more official, and like it's just stuff like DC's is like because Warner Brothers never put the effort until like I think the Avengers became successful, and then they started to make more superhero films. But that's
Yeah.
it's here or there. But yeah. But last thing to discuss, I will say, is the post credit scene.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I was in record. I never saw this in theaters. Nick Fury post credit scene, but
Uh
you
huh.
have, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
remember staying after.
Okay. I know this was leaked, and I mean, I don't know how they got leaked, but whatever. I
Well,
well, go
I
ahead.
think I knew about it because I had read there was like an article in Rolling Stone about the movie,
Oh, okay.
and it was like stay till after the credits because Samuel L. Jackson's gonna show up.
Oh,
Uh,
really? They just say that.
they might not have actually said like what happened, but they definitely said like stay after the credits.
Okay.
Um, so
Yeah. Um. I mean, it's kind of funny because the post credit scene is not new. Like, it's been there before.
it's been around for a while, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's just that this series made it more popular.
Right, because it made it like it made like it had information that you needed for like sequels,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it got you excited about crossovers and stuff.
Yeah. I think it's funny. I don't know. I don't know. You have this like the most funniest post credit scene that you discover. Like, we should make a list of that. Like, I did not know that X-Men 3 had like a post credit scene
Hmm.
where we got like Metager, treating this like Karuto's body, and then somehow Xavier transfer his mind into that body, and like we're
Yeah.
never gonna get a payoff for that at all in the
Nope.
series. Nope.
Nope.
Oh my
Uh,
god. Oh god. Oh god. It's so funny. And then like Master of the Universe. I don't know, you seen that movie, but
no.
like Skeletor comes up and he's like, I'm I'm coming back or something like that. It's so funny. Oh god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh man. That was
yeah.
frustrating. This.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off is like the best one though.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
just love Deadpool. I love
Oh,
Deadpool.
good. Hmm.
Copy it. He's like, "Oh, what are you still doing here?" And then he just continues blabber about the sequel, and it's like, "Oh, Cable's gonna win." It's just such a perfect way to end it. It's just, oh
Hmm.
god, oh god, I love that post credit scene is funny, and then the time travel post credit scene of Deadpool 2, it's
Hmm.
just classic. Love it. uh, of him retconning X-Men Origins Wolverine. Oh my god. Oh god, it's so funny. Yeah, one day we need to do like a top 10 favorite post credit scenes. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many now. It's like it's funny. I don't know if I will put this as my favorite. It's because it's like, oh, we're building into a universe, and I mean, like, okay, but I don't know. Like,
Yeah. It's like I don't know because it was the first like it was exciting at the time, but now since we're like used to this kind of thing,
yeah,
it's not as it doesn't feel as important.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
It's yeah, it's just crazy. Yeah, I think it's totally crazy. Yeah, excuse me. But no, last thing I want to discuss is, did you seen the alternate take of this post credit scene? Um,
no, I haven't.
okay, so it was when Endgame came out,
Hmm.
before COVID and all that. Like, Kevin, like, I think spilled like a special edition of there was like an alternate take of this post credit scene
Mm-hmm.
where instead of Jackson Fury saying, "Oh, you're in a you're in a world full of superheroes," instead of that line, he say like, "Oh, you're not in a world where like there was crawling man and mutants." Like they mention Spider-Man and the X-Men in this post-credit scene, but they
Huh.
change it. So
So so originally they were planning on crossing over with the Fox and Sony films.
I mean, I it kind of fits, especially because we know in the Avengers. I kind of forgot we didn't mention this in the podcast, but it was just minor, really, because
Mm-hmm.
the Amazing Spider-Man,
Right. They were
us,
gonna. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, they were gonna have Oscorp Tower in the New York skyline,
yeah,
but
yeah,
they like scrapped that at the last second.
yeah. For like timing, they reportedly say that they couldn't because the timing was just not right or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But yeah, so it wasn't like it was just kind of like they wanted to, but then it's just like, well, how like illegally could Marvel Studios cross over those people because they are never different studios and you know
Right.
but it's in like paleo universe, like what could happen if they actually allowed to do that, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. um
Yeah.
but
What if the first Avengers movie was like the Avengers teaming up with like Wolverine and Spider Man?
oh my god. uh oh boy, I I personally don't want that.
Oh, I don't
I
either. I'm
I mean,
fine with what we got, but it
yeah,
would
yeah,
be like an interesting parallel universe where
yeah,
they were allowed to cross over.
yeah. I think the Spider-Man one I maybe want the most because I feel like the comics never justified it right, and then I think Marvel Studios couldn't maybe justify that. But I'm just saying because I want Andrew Garfield to be in that universe. But
Yeah, I really hope they bring him back again.
yeah,
I'm sure they won't,
no,
but
I
oh, I missed him so much.
yeah. Oh my god! Like the only reason I like No Way Home is because of him, and and then and just the Electro, and that's it. I'm sorry. I just thought those characters. Oh, it's because they pay off things that was potentially good in the sequel, but
Hmm.
they didn't do it right. And then this movie they did, and No Way Home.
Yeah, yeah. No Way Home really fixed like everything wrong with the earlier Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah. So, I guess is there anything else to say about Iron Man? I think we covered everything. I think.
Yeah, I think so. Just
Yeah. I mean, it's a great film. I mean, it's
hmm
still enjoyable. It's like, I mean, there's minor here and there, like the jokes, and the Playboy, like like scenes where Tony, you see the pole dance, and then him having um sex with the reporter. I don't know
hmm
her name, top of my head.
Christine Everhart.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and I know. It never bothers me because he's a playboy, and
Right.
you know,
It's a character thing. Like you know, he's kind of a
yeah.
misogynist jerk. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Um, I mean, I know it could gone too far, but
yeah,
I
I think they show it as like a symptom of his um like his life of excess and him like not having like a purpose.
mhm,
He like tones all that down when he like becomes Iron Man. Like
yeah,
he's like going after Pepper instead.
yeah.
Um,
Um,
yeah, so I think it's depicted as like a character flaw, like an immaturity.
yes, yeah,
It's not like necessarily glorified, which I think is why it works.
yeah. Yeah, and something that you can do again. I always feel like they could have done that with Doctor Strange, but like it's always like they feel like they have to go back with Doctor Strange. Cause that's another thing. Like do you think they took this from Doctor Strange, like the egotistic narcissist, into Tony Stark? Like,
No, I
because
feel like
what do you
I
think?
mean both characters have those aspects.
Hmm.
Um, I
Oh,
mean, Doctor
okay.
Strange has never been like a playboy, but
Yeah, yeah.
uh, he definitely has an ego that rivals Tony's.
Okay,
No,
okay.
there's very like there's a good reason for them to have a lot of parallels.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
not because they have mustache, right? Like
no,
goatees.
no.
Okay, that's good.
Personality wise, there's a lot of parallels.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is different from the comics as well. Like Tony is a playboy, you know, like that, but like he's never like egotistic in the comics or even the animation shows that I seen with him. It was more like a new thing they added into this film, like to make it more like believable to the arc that he's going for this film. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
so yeah, so Um, yeah, I did want to cover that because that was something that it was kind of important because that's always been when the Doctor Strange film came out. It was like people compared to that. Like I unfortunately I haven't read a lot of comic books for Doctor Strange at that point,
Hmm.
and I just didn't have any opinion to that. But
Yeah.
so
The Doctor Strange movie does really feel like it's, especially the first two acts, just like a recreation of the first Iron Man movie, which is really unfortunate. Um,
yeah, yeah,
but the characters have a lot of like similar story beats to go through.
yeah,
I'm not super thrilled with. We've talked about Doctor Strange before. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
But
but
I mean, it worked in Captain America. I will
yeah,
say, I mean, like they could have done very unique things. It just I feel like there was just a lot of overthinking in Doctor Strange, the film
hmm,
in general.
yeah,
It didn't feel like there was. I mean, there were passion about it, but like it, I feel like the direction was wrong for that film.
yeah. It felt confused.
Yeah, exactly. But fortunately, we got it, and I that's one of the reasons I like the sequel because it at least took risks. But I like it and dislike
Yeah,
it, you know. But
it did take risks.
yeah, exactly.
I
So
don't think many of them paid off, but it did take risks.
oh boy, yeah, I agree. I mean, I agreed.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did appreciate that they tried to do things a little differently. That was the novelty was appreciated.
but yeah, but I mean, it's crazy. 14 years, uh, 28 films so far, and no film has like caught the cultural impact of Iron Man. Like, I mean, there's a few that
I would
did it.
say, I would say the Avengers,
Yeah.
but that's about it. Yeah,
Well, Guardians, I feel like that was the
almost. Yeah,
yeah,
it was
almost.
almost there. I feel like Iron Man and the Avengers are the only two that like
Yeah,
really had like a deep impact, and like the other Avengers movies.
yeah. The
But
third one and fourth, I think, did it like
mm-hmm.
close, and Black Panther as well. I think that
Yes,
was
of course. Yeah.
yeah, like I think that one did the closest for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you mentioned tightly, tightly written and
Mm-hmm.
structure. For me,
Yeah.
in terms of closeness that we got is Shang-Chi. I feel like that caught that as well in terms of being tightly written and
Mm-hmm.
just getting everything right in the
Yeah, that was
moments.
definitely a step above like a lot of the more recent Marvel movies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I'm just very curious where we're gonna go, and uh, I I just really like this character, and I mean it's very sad to not have him in the universe, but like I think he definitely had the best ending of any characters. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's just crazy. But any more to say about Iron Man? Before we wrap things up.
Just that I think it's like still Marvel's best film.
Yeah, I still
Um,
think as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's one of my favorites. Like not just favorite Marvel movies, but one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, no. I agree with you. It's my personal favorite as well. I mean, it got me into Marvel more, and like like it formed my personality, and like I think it was the time like when I saw this, I wanted a goatee, like
Hmm.
instead I got a beard, like well, a full beard, like Wolverine, but but it formed my personality and just formed who I am today, and so it was a very personal film for me growing
Hmm.
up. So, but yeah, it's still top notch superhero things, and it's still one of the best superhero origin telling stories we have so far. Uh,
Hmm.
which no one has kind of been on.
No.
It's tough. So, but yeah, yeah. Speaking of MCU 28 film, we got another Disney Plus show. We this week Miss Marvel is going to premiere.
Hmm.
Which I'm very excited to talk about, and for next Sunday, of course, and discuss the first episode. So I kind of wrap things up. Are you excited for this show, Will? Did you know this character well?
I wouldn't say I knew her well, but
Okay,
I know of her, and I like her in things that I've like
o-
seen or read before. So,
okay,
and
okay.
it seems like the actress that's playing her is really like capturing the spirit of the character. Um,
Yes,
so I'm looking forward to seeing her.
yeah,
Um,
okay.
yeah.
Um, I'm excited for to have another like self-contained uh show, maybe.
Well,
I'm
there's going to be a lot of Captain Marvel setup, I think.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, I want to be careful with that because, like, last year we thought certain characters was gonna pop up, like Doctor Strange and WandaVision, or I mean, blah blah blah. Other characters popping here and there. Like, I want to be kind of,
Yeah, well, I don't think Captain Marvel's going to show up. I'm just worried they're going to introduce plot points that don't get paid off until
oh yeah,
Captain Marvel 2.
yeah. Man, this it's interesting. This show is like have kept a lot of story beats like very like secretive.
Yeah,
Like I know she's becoming Miss Marvel, but like, what's the end game of the show? Like, what's the main storyline for the show's like mid series, like first season, whatever? Like, what is it? And they
yeah.
haven't exploded that.
Yeah, we don't really know like who the antagonists are.
Yes, like that's something I'm like, okay. I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, the MCU doesn't like emphasize villains like DC does, but like
Hmm.
it's always. I mean,
You'd think that there'd be a little like in the marketing of like
yeah,
this is who she's fighting,
yeah,
but
yeah. Because I mean, like obviously we've been like we know that they changed the superhero power set for Miss
hmm
Marvel, and so I'm like very curious where they're gonna take that. Like, because like you're not like I brought up in last week's discussion about, or even Doctor Strange 2, about we got Black Bolt, and we mentioned the Inhumans, and it's weird that we're not doing that for this character in this universe or this multiverse thing. Um, I,
yeah, like
I
I understand. I'm just
mhm,
I'm disappointed, but I get it.
yeah.
Um,
Um, I don't know. A disappointment. Like I'm like kind of confused. Like, cause I mean, when she does the glow thing in her bracelet, like it is similar to her powers in the comics. It's just like it's different visually. Like I
yeah,
don't.
well, I think the stretchy powers never look good in
Yeah,
live
I
action. I
Yeah.
think that's part of it. I think they don't want to give Mr. Fantastic's powers to someone before they properly introduce Mr. Fantastic. Um,
I mean, weirdly, they introduced him already.
I know I know, but I mean like the
Yeah, I
real
know.
version that we're gonna follow. Um,
Oh God. It's weird to say real version. It's like
no, I know
I, I, I,
the the main continuity version, main
yeah,
like
yeah,
universe. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I know.
um,
I'm just being jokey about it. It's just
I
like,
know.
you know, it's funny. It's. I mean, this is how crazy multiverse is sometimes.
Yeah,
But yeah. But yeah, I will say I'm very excited for the costume. I think it's just comic accurate suit. I love it. So
hmm
I will say that. I'm very excited for the culture. I mean, this is the culture I don't personally know the best, and so I'm very curious how far we'll go into, like, this I think Parasganic culture.
what
Um,
Pakistani?
yeah, see, thank you. That, and because it's very, like, important in the comics as well. I read
Yeah.
um
Also, just psyched for a superhero from New Jersey.
yes, that's true. I'm excited for that too. Like, I think where was she live in New Jersey? I
It was Hoboken in the comics, but I think they changed it um,
to
for this show.
Where is it now?
It might be Jersey City.
Okay, Jersey City. I mean, it'd be funny if they put it in Morristown or or
Central Jersey. No, I think like they want it to be across the river from New York, but
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of scenes in the comics where, like, she's in the river sometimes, and so
yeah.
it makes
Oh,
sense.
she
Um,
has to team up with all the New York superheroes a lot, so it makes sense to put her like across the river.
yeah. Yeah. So, and I guess to, like, wrap things up, I will say, like, we are gonna get Carol in in the series. I mean, she's very important in the comics. I mean, like, she did,
Yeah,
you know. Um,
I
what do you
my
think?
guess is post credit scene for the
Okay,
finale, just to set up the second Captain Marvel movie.
okay, I can see
Or
that.
we might get like more footage of her like being Captain Marvel that Kamala is like watching on the news or something.
That's
But I
true.
don't think she's gonna interact with Captain Marvel until the end.
Okay, I think that makes a lot of sense if we're heading towards there. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I mean, if we are gonna set up the, like, secret invasion or whatever the Marvels is gonna be, like, I can see this show doing that, and, like, that's why they being very like, secretive about
Mm-hmm.
the plot and antagonists and all that.
Yeah.
Like, it could be that. If not,
Yeah.
then I'm curious why they've been very secretive about it. But
Yeah. I don't know. I hope it's standalone.
yeah, me too. That's my thing about it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess the one thing I want to say, like, who you expect other heroes to pop up? Like, I can see Daredevil pop up here because we're not dealing with the humans, and I,
Yeah. I mean, he's right across the river, but
yeah,
no, I don't think we'll see any other heroes.
that's true. Yeah, I agreed. I agreed. But yeah, but thank you, Will, for joining me for today for discussion on Iron Man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and this was very fun. Of course, everyone, thank you for joining us talking about the first Iron Man film of the MCU and in general superhero stuff. Me and Will be back for next Sunday to discuss our TV weekly on Miss Marvel when that will premiere this Wednesday on June 8th. So thank you, everyone, and of course, watch out for this podcast being released this week. Bye.